What is passion? Passion is the love of life. It is the love of self. Passion is the love for others. And passion is the result of the discovery of God-given purpose in one's life. When you really understand that this is my God-given purpose, that's when you really find passion. And by knowing the true meaning of words, we allow those words to then have a profound influence on our lives. Because I've explained to you before that the real meaning of passion has to do with pain and suffering. The real meaning of passion has to do with pain and suffering. Because every passion requires sacrifice. Every passion requires sacrifice. Whatever it is that you are passionate about, you're willing to sacrifice for. To sacrifice means to perform the sacred. So passion is a form of sacred suffering. Sacred suffering. When you're passionate about something, you will do it even when nobody else wants to do it, if you're passionate about it. Passion ultimately means being willing to suffer for what you love. It ultimately means being willing to suffer for what you love. So if you're passionate about music, you're willing to suffer through the practice. You're willing to suffer through the discipline of doing this thing until you can do it. If you love the game of basketball or baseball or football, you're willing to suffer through the practice for the love of the game. Whatever you love, there has to be sacrifice that is a part of it, because passion stretches you. Passion stretches you. It'll push you further than what you would normally go. It always stretches you. And when you discover what you're willing to pay the price for, you discover your passion. When you ask yourself this question, what am I willing to pay the price for in life? What am I willing to pay the price for? And you'll often find your meaning of your life through suffering. I can't tell you the number of individuals who find what they're called to do because of some tragedy that they have experienced in their life. Sometimes when a young child has seen a parent die or grandparent die of a strange disease, that it will make that person actually want to then go into medicine so that they can find a cure and become a research scientist. But it was because of the pain of their losing somebody that they loved. And out of your pain, you find your purpose. Let me just tell you, then remind you of this, that God never ever wastes a hurt. God never wastes pain. May I even tell you that the Bible talks about how God even collects your tears in a vial. He even knows it hurts him when his children break down and cry, and God says, I collect your tears. I take note of it. I remember when you hurt. I remember when you hurt. And sometimes we're crying our eyes out wondering, does God even take note? He's got vials of your tears. Vials of, he remembers. He remembers. Because connected to your pain is your purpose. God lets you hurt in one area so you can bring healing to others in another. The very thing that jacked your life up, you don't want to see that happen to anybody else. So if something happens to your child, you want to work that this doesn't happen to anybody else's child. If you go through this pain, you don't want anybody else to experience that. And out of your pain comes your purpose. Does that make sense to you? It's amazing when you discover what you're willing to pay the price for. It often means you're suffering. But Viktor Frankl said that what is to give light must endure burning. What is to give light must endure burning. You ever notice how a kerosene lamp works? How a candle works? If it gives light, it's got to endure burning. You got to set a fire on it. The wick turns black. The very thing that is bringing light to others, somebody is paying a price of a burning when they deal with that to give light to others. You got to be willing to be burned to try to help some other folks. You will get burned when you try to help people. Have you ever tried to help somebody and you lend them money and they tell you they're going to pay you back and you get burned trying to? Have you ever tried to help somebody else's child and you got mixed up and messed up and you co-signed for somebody and now your credit got burned because you were trying to give light to somebody else, and whatever You realize that whatever gives light must endure burning. Whenever you try to teach other people and then they begin to take what you teach for granted, it burns you. You feel like you get burned because folks don't fully appreciate the effort, the sacrifice that you will have made. Have you ever experienced that in your life where there is a burning when you try to give light to people? You're trying to show people that, listen, the way that you're living is detrimental to your soul. This is detrimental to your health. This is detrimental to your financial future, and they don't care. The very thing that gives light also must endure burning. Compassion. Say compassion. C-O-M means with. Passion means pain. So when you put it all together, compassion means to suffer with another. It means to suffer with another. Whenever somebody has compassion on you, they are suffering with you. If a child is sick in the night and a parent has to sit up with that child, that parent is suffering with the child. When anybody in the family gets cancer, the whole family suffers with them. When somebody that you love is hurting, you hurt. That's compassion. It means to suffer with. It means to suffer with. It means to suffer with whenever you are with somebody and you feel their pain. That's what real compassion is all about. And this is why the people who understand your pain have compassion on you. Say understand. The word understand, a lot of times, if you don't understand etymology from where it gets its meaning, its origin, understand does not mean to stand under. To understand means to stand among or to stand with. You don't understand people unless you come down from your high ivory towers to where people live and touch the infirmities of the things that bother them. And when you understand, it means that you come down among them. You hear their conversations. You hear their pain. You hear what hurts them. You come down from that. You've seen the program where they'll have a CEO of a company come down and he'll work clandestinely in his own business. He's the owner of the franchise, and now he's working in the franchise. He's been used to being in the corporate office with the air conditioning on, but now he's out in the retail store, and he doesn't even fully understand why they don't do certain things and why this doesn't happen. He's in the ivory tower, but he begins to understand the job when you come there and you have to deal with cantankerous, ungrateful people that you're serving. You will serve people that will be nasty with you, and then they'll make a mistake and then blame you for it. And they'll say, to you, you'll give them what they ordered, and then that wasn't even, they'll say that that's not what I ordered. And you heard them say that. And they made a mistake in their own mind, and they thought that they said something with their mouth that they said with their mind. And you gave them what they said with their mouth, and now you made a mistake. And because the customer is king, you got to act like. And so when you come down out of the ivory tower, and now you are standing with these folks, you understand what it feels like now to be on your feet for 8 hours a day and have a 30-minute lunch break. And you understand what it feels to be like, when you're now you've been in an air-conditioned office, but now you're in a place where it's 100 degrees in there, and you're sweating just standing still. And so there are certain things you never fully understand from a distance. You've got to come and stand among, stand with, until you've been there to know what it feels like. That's why Jesus gave up his mighty power in glory, and he took on the form of a man to come and stand among us. He was born of a woman who was chosen among men. She was chosen among women just to come so that Jesus could come through natural channels to see what it feels like to be human without supernatural, divine, godlike power. And Jesus came and he suffered and was touched with infirmities just like we deal with, so that he could understand us to live the same way that we have to live. That's why he became our preeminent example. He understands us because he has felt our pain. He was stricken, he was smitten, he knew what the poverty was about. He had to be buried in a borrowed tomb that was not even his. He knew what it was to be in dire straits. He knew what it was not to be able to pay his taxes. He had to get his boy Peter, who owned the fishing industry to say, Peter, go and look in the fish's mouth and get my money to be able to pay my taxes. I'm in trouble, Peter, and I need you. Jesus said, I understand your dilemma when you got to borrow something to make ends meet. How dare you think that God does not know who you are and the struggles with which you deal? He understands. He knows. He stands with us. He knows what it is to be betrayed by people that say that they've got your back and they're so far behind you, you can't even see them. He understands betrayal. He had a Judas on his own team. He understands what it is to be stabbed in the back and to have somebody to set you up with a kiss and turn you over into the hands of your enemies. And you think that we serve a Savior who does not understand? He knows what it feels like to be in a Garden of Gethsemane, separated from God, praying as it were great drops of blood, because he saw his life before him, and he asked folks to pray for him and came back and found out that they were asleep. He knows what it is to feel forsaken by God on a cross, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And you think that we have a God who does not understand our pain and our trouble of the betrayal and of the abdication and of the rejection? He came unto his own, and his own received him not. He was led as a sheep before his shearers is dumb. How dare we think that Jesus does not understand our pain? He knows the darkness of the confusion of not knowing what to do. He knows what it is to be led of the Spirit into the wilderness for 40 days, to be tempted of the devil, to have all hell break loose, and he hasn't done a thing wrong. He knows what it is to be falsely accused. He understands, because he came and he walked among us in a wonderful, wonderful way. And I'm glad that he did. With passion that was in his heart, and that's why he has a passion for us and compassion for us. He has extravagant love for us. Passion is what gives us our fire. It is passion. Passion is what makes our life worth living. It is our passion. And let me just remind you that it is better to have passion on fire than to have knowledge on ice. Passion. Viktor Frankl said that this is the core of the human spirit. If we can find something to live for, if we can find some meaning to put at the center of our lives, he said even the worst of suffering becomes bearable. That reminds me of a story of a man by the name of Dim Brinkley. He was a construction worker who injured his back, and he was laid off of his job. And he came home to tell his wife of the plight of what had happened to him. And his wife looked at him and she said, I don't need you anymore, and nobody else needs you. And she cleaned out the bank account, and she took the good car and left him alone with their young son. And this man, injured on a disability list from a construction job, Dim Brinkley, couldn't take the pain of hearing the woman that he loved say to him that I don't need you and nobody else needs you. And he believed the negative press that came out of her mouth. A wise woman builds her house, but a foolish woman tears it down with the words of her own mouth. And she assassinated her husband without ever picking up a weapon, because she had a switchblade in her mouth, and she stabbed him to death. And he went in the back of their apartments after she told him that I don't need you and nobody else needs you. He goes in the back of his apartment building and takes a loaded .45 and points the barrel in his mouth as he opens. And milliseconds before pulling the trigger, he hears a faint voice in the distance crying, Daddy, Daddy, where are you? Daddy, I need you. Daddy, Daddy. And it caused him to stop And he broke down and cried like a baby. And little did he realize that this little boy that he and his wife had delivered saved his life. And when the daddy refused to kill himself, he actually saved his son's life. Because when a father becomes frustrated and puts a gun to his own head, and when he pulls the trigger, he blows the brain of his son out. And his son saved his life, but he saved his son's life because one person said, "Daddy, I need you." And you don't ever know, just because somebody doesn't want you, somebody else does. All you need is one. All you need is one. All you need is one somebody in this world to be able to love you. Just one. This illustrates another principle that was taught by Viktor Frankl, saying that a man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears toward a human being who affectionately waits for him or to an unfinished work will never be able to throw his life away. He knows the why for his existence. And when you know the why, you'll be able to bear almost any how, as long as you know the why. How can you be unhappy or depressed when you know that there is one person in the world who needs your gift? Just one, just one, just one. And when you realize that God puts you here for purpose, you begin to get excited when you operate in that purpose. I'm telling you that when was the last time that you were passionate about spending time with God to the degree that you lost track of time? When you're in a real passion, you lose track of time doing what you love to do. When was the last time that you were passionate about opening your Bible and searching it for truth, to hear God speak to you, reading God's love letter to you? When was the last time that you passionately went to God's Word? When was the last time that you were passionate about sharing Jesus with somebody? Just sharing it with somebody who didn't know him. When was that the last time? And Jesus was addressing the church at Ephesus in the 2nd chapter of the book of Revelation. He began to commend them on things that they had well working for them and things that were their strong points. But he said to them in verse 4, he said, "Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love." You know, and I'm afraid that God has to look at the church world standing on the outside in many instances, knocking on the door and having to remind us, you've left your first love. You used to be crazy about me. You used to not be able to wait to talk to me. You used to be anxious about telling other folks about me. And we've grown cold and have forgotten our first love. We've left our first love. What is it that you used to do when you were younger that brought much joy and fulfillment to your life? You've left your first love. What is it? What is it? What is it that you used to really do that really used to make you charged about life, about making a difference in this world of ours? And you've lost it. What is your passion? Is it music? Is it dance? Is it writing? Is it painting? Is it spoken word? Is it helping people? Is it cooking? Is it organizing? Is it speaking? Is it singing? Is it sharing the gospel? Is it working with children? Is it coaching? Is it mentoring somebody? Is it researching? Is it analyzing? Is it fighting for justice for other people who don't have a voice themselves? Is it rescuing folks that are in danger? Is it spending time with old folks? What's your passion? What is your passion? What is your passion? And what are you doing when you lose track of time? What is it? What activity is it that you're doing during that time? Don't wait for something to happen way down the road. James Oppenheim said that the foolish man seeks happiness in the distance, the wise grows it under his feet. What is it that you would do if nobody paid you? What is that? If nobody paid you, what is it that you would do? Remember that passion is pain. What hurts you to go without? I mean, what is it that you'd really be hurt if you just couldn't even do this? You know, in the United States civil courts, a crime of passion is referred to as temporary insanity. A crime of passion. A crime of passion is referred to as temporary insanity. But here's my admonition to you is don't let your short-term passions destroy your long-term blessings. Don't let your short-term passions destroy your long-term blessing. Because Satan uses pleasure to derail your purpose. He uses pleasure to derail your purpose. So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. What makes you cry? What is it that makes you cry? Harriet Tubman said that I freed 1,000 slaves, but I could have freed 1,000 more if they only knew that they were slaves. And her heart was broken because there were people that she wanted to set free and they didn't realize that they were in bondage. What makes you smile? What is it that makes you come alive? What you are trained to do is not always the thing that gives you joy. Because you see, you can monetize your passion, but you cannot passionize your money. In other words, your passion can earn you money, but your money will never earn you passion. Dennis Waitley said it well when he said, chase your passion, not your pension. And I want to admonish you today, don't let something that doesn't matter cause you to lose something that does. There are too many times driving down the road of life that a gnat flies into the car and you nearly kill your fool self and your family swatting at a gnat. You got to understand that there are certain things that are not even worth your giving your attention to because something more important is at hand. And when you're fighting the good fight, you don't have time to get in an altercation with somebody in the grandstand when your enemy is in the ring. There's a reason, there is a reason that your windshield is so vast and wide in your car and your rear view is so small. There's a reason for that. That ought to tell us that the overwhelming vast majority of the time you ought to be gazing out at what is ahead of you and every now and then just glancing back to something that's behind you. What you may be naturally gifted to do may not be the thing that makes you happy. And so I ask you today, what is it that you're discussing when a sparkle comes into your eye and your face brightens? What do you find easy in life? You find it easy, normally you're passionate about it. What is it that you would do for free? What sparks your creativity? What do you like to talk about? Because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What do you like to talk about? What makes you unafraid of failure? Well, I'm going to do this even if I don't win. What makes you unafraid of failure? What would you regret not having tried? May I just say to you this, that if you're not familiar with your passion yet, keep looking. Keep looking. Keep looking. And I declare to you that you will know when you find it. Nobody will have to inform you of that. You will know when you find it. E.M. Forster said one person with passion is better than 40 people that are merely interested. But I'm so glad that Jesus is our preeminent example of passion. On one occasion, Jesus became so engrossed in ministering to the people that he failed to eat. And the disciples came to him and they pleaded with him to eat something, and Jesus explained, I have meat to eat that you don't know anything about. John 4:32. And they thought then that somebody else had brought him some food to eat. And Jesus explained to them in John 4:34, he said, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. That what I'm really passionate about is doing what I was born to do. Doing what I was called to do. Doing what I was put in this world to do. It was God's compassion and compassion for us that caused him to send Jesus. For God so loved the world that he gave. He has an incredible passion for you. I feel sorry for people who live life with no passion. I feel so sorry for marriages that are merely existing and tolerating each other where all of the passion is gone. Jesus is passion epitomized and personified. Passion on fire, passionately loving us with more than we could ever imagine. He loves us in an incredible way. He does. Bow your heads. Nobody walking, please, just in honor to God. As we reverence Him, somebody's shoulders hanging in the balance now. Thank you for being respectful in the house of the Lord. There are those whose lives are hurting, and out of your pain, out of Jesus' pain came salvation. Jesus has already gone to hell for you. Don't you try to go and pay a bill that's already been paid. He's already been down that road. He's already done. He took the pain for you. He took it. He took it for me, and I'm so grateful. We so desperately need Him. Today, there are some folks, the voice of Jesus Christ. He said, you know what? I'm married to the backslider. But I hear him crying. I feel his pain vicariously. Crying down through the vista of time, saying, you've left your first love. You've left your first love. And I want you to come back to me. I want you to come back. I want you to come back. Now, if you know that that's the Lord Jesus talking to you, you used to love Him and be on fire for Him. If you've grown cold toward Him, people wouldn't even recognize that you're His. And you realize that you're a long way from where you started off. Not in a positive light, but you've grown cold towards your first love, and your first love still is crazy about you.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time